This is the Harwich Planning Board, so if you think you're someplace else, you should not be here. This is to inform you that the town may and is video recording this meeting. Any persons intending to either audio or video record this session are required to inform the chair. Is there anybody who tends to record it? No. Okay? First matter is the Witchmere Harbor Real Estate LLC.
Mr. Chairman, can we, by chance, take the 2020 schedule out of order?
I'm sorry, of course. I didn't have it in front of me.
Nope, that's okay.
Can I have your copy?
I haven't, it should be in there. If you don't have it, I do have an extra. And I do have it up on the screen, if that's helpful.
I got the next one.
Oh, that's the 19.
You know, just for the rest of you, in order to figure out where we might continue matters into next year, we have to figure out what our schedule's gonna be for next year.
Right. Generally, we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday. You meet, not me, you. The board meets on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. Next year, there are going to be several instances where you can't meet on the second or fourth because of holidays, conflicts, election days, all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I did provide for you what would be your schedule based on the second and fourth Tuesdays. A couple folks have said, have we ever thought of moving to Thursday meetings? So I also provided for you on the calendar what that schedule would look like if you wanted to move to the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. I don't care one way or the other. It makes no difference to me, but whatever the board would want. You will have to have 4 meetings on a Thursday next year, and a couple times you'd have to meet on the first Tuesday of the month rather than the second, just because scheduling. And as the board knows, we can't hold meetings on election days, town meeting, and the selectmen, if there's a Monday holiday, they bump to Tuesday, which kicks us to Thursday.
Now, I assume this document you gave me that says draft?
That's the draft for the Tuesdays. And on the next page is a calendar, Joe,
Yeah.
which shows yellow, would show the Thursdays. So essentially, it would just go to the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. Again, makes no difference to me.
My conflict is that I'm the planning board's rep to the community preservation, and that meets on the second Thursday.
Okay.
If it was a third Thursday, it would be easy, but I don't know that that's.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comment?
I think a lot of people would rather have, I would think, would want to have it on Tuesday instead of Thursday in case they wanted a 4-day weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, makes no difference to me. We can stick with the Tuesday, in which case you'd be going with the schedule that I have provided for you, except for those 4 Thursday meetings, which would be Thursday, May 28th, Thursday, September 10th, Thursday, November 19th, and Thursday, December 17th.
They're so marked on the
Yeah.
draft planning
Yep.
schedule.
I
Okay.
didn't think you'd want to meet on December 23rd, so that's why I didn't even
Merry Christmas.
put that in there. I won't be here then, so I really won't care.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments?
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we stick with the Tuesday meetings in 2020
And approve the schedule as provided?
and approve the schedule as provided.
Second. Favor?
Aye.
Done. Okay.
Very much.
First matter is the Witchmere Harbor Real Estate LLC, and we have have a request that this matter be further continued. I just wanted to ask your comment, do we have any, when I saw this, and I knew they were gonna request, do we have any rules, regulations about how many times or how often you continue a matter?
You do not. It's a public hearing. The public hearing has been opened. All you have to do is open a public hearing within 65 days, and you need to render a decision within 90 days of when you close the public hearing. So you've never closed the public hearing.
So the period of once we open and
You can
until we
continue it
close
till
could go on forever?
Till the cows
Not
come
forever,
home.
but I
Right,
understand.
Right. They've been making their way through the Conservation Commission, which
I
frankly is the
understand
one
what their
that
problem is, I
needs
know
it.
there is.
Yeah. Yep. So they have requested a continuance to the first meeting in January, which now we know is January 14th.
Okay,
So I move that we continue PB 2019-27, Witchmere Harbor Real Estate LLC, to January 14th, 2020. Wow. No earlier than 6:30 PM.
second. And you had a question?
I had a question. Do we have to go through the newspaper posting process for every continuance?
No, we don't, but what the applicant has been doing is actually sending a postcard out to let folks know that the hearing has been continued.
There's no additional cost to the town?
Nothing to the town.
And he's not required to do that, is he?
He's not required. I suggested it might be a nice thing to do, and he agreed that it would be a nice thing to do, so they have done that.
Thank you.
Might make, when we finally do hear it, the neighbors a little bit
Yes, and I do have neighbors who are getting in
interested in
touch
that.
with me, to find out what's going on, so, yes.
I know one neighbor, very famous, pretty well-known guy, who happens to live in Texas, and he's in the butter. So, such as it is. Okay, next matter.
Yeah, you have a motion and a second, but you haven't
All those
voted
in
yet.
favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next matter is the Deerfield Nominee Trust, William Marsh trustee.
Yeah, good evening, Susan Ledoux. I didn't know if you needed to read the ad or not, sorry. Okay. Let's see, we were last here, I don't even remember when it was, September?
No, it's actually, testimony was provided on the 8th of October.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, the eligible members to vote on this are Craig, Bill, Mary, Joe, and Duncan. Because those were the only folks who were here at that meeting. Dave is out sick tonight. We did explain to the applicant that it will require a unanimous vote of the board, so it's up to them as to whether or not they want to move forward.
Thank you. Susan Ledoux from Eastward Companies. I met with Charlene and Griffin Ryder following the meeting on the 8th and looked at the items that Griffin had outlined and talked about some other items that the board members still had concerns about at the last meeting. And so we addressed those with the revised site plan and landscape plan. And I'll just quickly, you should probably have my letter from October 23rd. And I'll just go through that quickly as to what the changes were with the plans. The previously proposed Grasscrete Island between the driveway openings has been replaced with a typical landscape island now. There seemed to be some concern about the Grasscrete, so we're going to go with a smaller landscape island with low-growing ground cover. The two driveway openings have been widened to the maximum allowed 50 feet each to allow for maximum maneuverability for potential large trucks and vehicles. And that was our concern with having the Grasscrete, or to be, before that, the wide opening. So we've met the regulation now as far as the driveway opening widths and have the island. One parking space previously proposed in the front middle section of the building's been removed to eliminate the noted conflict between the space and the access to the proposed garage door bay in the non-compliant backup parking aisle width. proposed concrete bumpers at the 2 remaining parking spaces in front of the building have been eliminated and replaced with a concrete berm to act as a parking bumper and provide easy access to the proposed garage doors or bays. A Cape Cod berm has been proposed around the perimeter of the asphalt parking area. The landscape areas around the foundation of the building that will be planted with low-growing ground cover are shown as crosshatched on the site plan and landscape plan. And that was a comment or concern by the town engineer. Because the proposed use is warehouse, a dumpster has not been proposed on the site plan. A note on the plan states no dumpsters shall be allowed on the site until such time as a revised site plan is submitted to the planning board and until such time as all trash shall be contained, I sort of repeated myself there, within the building and disposed of on the, properly, and on the plan it is, doesn't repeat itself. It is properly noted on the plan. A note has been added to the site plan which states radii not labeled on the plan shall meet standard of 4 feet, and that was at the suggestion of Griffin. A note has been added to the site plan which states dandy bag to be installed to proposed catch basin prior to final site stabilization. Again, it was a town engineer comment. Let's see, a note has been added to the site plan which states an additional 6 parking spaces can be accommodated inside the proposed building if necessary. And Charlene and Griffin and I discussed, you know, we meet the requirement for parking per the warehouse use, but if additional parking is needed, these are garage doors and bays, and people can pull in there if it's needed. So we just thought we'd add that note to the plan. A note has been added to the site plan which states parking spaces, maneuvering areas, driveway openings, and walkways will all be asphalt, and that goes back to Griffin's comment about the surface materials and what was being used on the site. And then I discussed the comment regarding the 4-foot minimum separation of groundwater from the bottom of the infiltration systems with David Clark. He indicated that the proposed systems will meet the 4-foot minimum and will be confirmed during construction as recommended by the town engineer. I believe that covered everything from the last meeting and comments.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Do you folks own all the land that runs over to the other, to the street? In
To
other
Great
words-
Western Road?
Yes. Do you own all the land that runs over to Great Western?
We own this lot. Then if you skip Allen's Landscaping and the 2 lots owned by Cloutier, we own the next 3 lots, if you're thinking of those, on the same side.
Which take you out to Great Western?
Yes, yes. And then we own 2 lots opposite, which are lots 14 and 15 on the opposite side of Deerfield. We do not own what is opposite of this lot, if you're
I gotcha.
thinking of
Okay, I know what you're talking about. There's a
Farrell, I think,
Yeah.
maybe owns.
boat or something down on that lot.
There could be.
And there are also 2 boats on the other end of this lot.
Yes, which are being taken away.
Please, I mean, we
Yes.
talked about this a month ago.
Oh, believe me, I know. We're trying to stay on top of, no, I'm blanking on his,
The boat guy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
down below, yeah,
Well, he's, across the street.
across the street and down.
Right.
Actually, last time I drove by there, it was clean. I was like, oh, wow.
And the 2 boats were gone?
The 2 right on Great Western were gone.
Well, the last time I went by there, the 2 boats were still on Great Western, but
Yeah.
that might have
And
been
then
sooner.
one showed up in front of their lot, like on your side of
Yeah,
Deerfield.
yeah, that was, especially once we start developing,
Right.
they can't be there. So
And,
we,
and
yeah.
and you don't own where the plumbing supply store is, the
No.
building up on the other end, again, on the other end of this?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Sir?
I have a question.
Okay, we will.
The easternmost curb cuts is, I see an arrow there, so that, I'm assuming means that's gonna be ingress, and the western curb cut, where it says there's a stop line and an arrow going out, that'll be exit the property? Is that correct? Okay, so that'll be painted, or there'll be signage indicating that?
Yes,
Okay.
if it's shown on the site plan, that's how it will be indicated on the ground.
Okay. Thank you.
Charlene, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Nope, that's okay. We met the Thursday after the meeting, so that was on October 10th, with Susan Ledoux, the town engineer, and I. And the town engineer and I, from now on, whenever possible, are actually gonna review all the plans together, which is a great thing.
Good idea.
It's a wonderful thing, because sometimes I think like an engineer, and sometimes he thinks like a planner, and I think it's gonna be good for the board as well as good for us in the process.
Just ask you a question, huh?
Yes.
I sat on this board in another town. And when we sat, the town engineer came to every meeting.
Yeah, he is spread so thin, so you're stuck with me as the planner.
No, I'm not
Which
talking about,
I
I'm glad to
know.
have you.
Yeah.
But we had,
Yes.
we had a planner and,
Yep.
and the town engineer who came.
Yep.
Hey, also,
You know, if we ever get a project that is really, really technical, you know, he would most
And he'd
likely
come in.
be here.
Sure, okay.
Absolutely. Oh, he's willing to be here. But the fact that he and I are sitting down together to review stuff, and especially with the applicant, has just worked out so well. So hopefully it'll be a benefit to you, because I know it helps he and I.
are you done?
No,
Go ahead.
that was just my precursor. So they are asking for 3 waivers: the design requirement regarding the parking setbacks for 3 of the parking spaces. They are asking for a waiver from the loading requirement, and they're also asking for the waiver from the dumpster. Conservation, building, police, highway, water, and fire have no concerns. Health, the applicant has not yet applied for a disposal construction permit. However, the site plan indicates that a fully compliant system will be installed. If 4 drains are to be installed, they are not allowed to be connected to the drainage or septic system and must be plumbed to an industrial holding tank. The engineer is satisfied with the revised plans submitted on October 23rd, 2019. Regarding my comments, a waiver has been requested for the parking spaces that do not meet the 15-foot parking setback. There's actually 4 in all. There's 3 that front on Depot, and then there's the handicap space along Deerfield. The board will need to expressly authorize approval of these spaces. The waiver request, in my opinion, is reasonable. B, the waiver for the loading area requirement based on the narrative provided also appears to be reasonable. The waiver for the dumpsters also appears to be reasonable. The applicant has indicated that 6 additional interior spaces would be available if needed, which I think is a benefit. As we've talked about in the past, the parking calculations are based solely on warehousing with no employees. Any use other than warehouse would need to come back to the planning board for further review and other department reviews for determination as to whether the parking and other features are appropriate for that proposed use. And just a reminder that this building did receive a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow for the 25-foot rear setback, and this should be referenced in the decision, and I have included that in findings of fact if you choose to move forward with this application this evening. And that's all I have.
Okay, members of the board.
Good.
No? Okay. Anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard in this matter? I didn't think so, but, okay.
And you did receive, and I read it into the record the last time, 1 letter of support for the application.
Okay. Okay, now I had something else. Just give me a minute, please. Okay, I think we're ready to close the public hearing.
Motion to close, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now,
So I move that we vote to approve the following waivers based on the information and presentation by the applicant. 1, we approve a waiver of section 325-42, which is the design requirements to expressly allow parking to be within 5 feet of a property line, where 15 feet is required within the IL zoning district. 2, a waiver from section 325-40 loading requirements. And 3, a waiver from section 325-41 location requirements, B for outside disposal container.
okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Can you be good enough to give the proposed findings?
Absolutely. I move that we vote to adopt the following proposed findings of fact. 1, that the property is within the IL zoning district. 2, the Deerfield Road provides for adequate access. 3, 2 50-foot curb cuts are proposed with landscaped islands separating the 2 curb cuts. 4, the parking is based on warehouse use. 5, the building received variance from the rear setback requirement to allow for 25 feet pursuant to ZBA case number 2019-26, land court document 1,377,700. And 6, the plan provides for efficient and safe disposal of surface water. 7, the use is consistent with the zoning code and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. And 8, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
Okay, can we get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Finally?
Then I move to vote to approve with conditions, case number PB 2019-36, Deerfield Nominee Trust, William Marsh, trustee, for site plan review special permit with waivers pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, section 225-51 and 55, for new construction of a 5,845 square foot metal structure for industrial use for property located at 4 Deerfield Road, map 45, parcel T1-7 in the I-L zoning district. This decision is based on the aforementioned findings of fact and the fact that the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich and the following conditions. 1, the special permit shall comply with all Board of Health requirements and reviews. 2, no dumpsters shall be allowed on-site until such time as a revised site plan is submitted to the planning board, and until such time, all trash shall be contained within the building and disposed of properly. 3, any signage shall comply with the sign code. 4, any changes to the site plan, changes of use other than warehouse or other configuration of the interior space of the 5,845 square foot building as shown on the reference plan shall be subject to further planning board review and approval. 5, signage shall comply with the requirements of the Code of the Town of Harwich and the building department. 6, lighting shall comply with the requirements of the Code of the Town of Harwich. 7, this decision shall be recorded with the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. 8, conformance with all review procedure requirements outlined pursuant to Chapter 400-18.g, inspection, certificate of completion, and as-built plan of the Code of the Town of Harwich shall be met.
Second?
I will, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Thank you.
Thank
Lizzie.
you. Yay.
Took us a while, but
Took us a while.
okay, Charlene, we'll go to the O'Leary matter.
If you could go to item number, room numeral 3.
I see it.
A3, eastward.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Just to confuse everybody, just so Susan doesn't have to.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, thanks. Okay, you want to proceed?
Oh, nice job.
Thank you.
Susan Ledoux from Eastward Companies here again tonight. Charlene has done a really nice job with our subdivision plan. So you can see which lots you have released. And we were only allowed to have 4 lots, 4 lots released. And, no, I'm sorry, actually 5, including Lot 1, but Lot 1 wasn't going to be built on, it was for the septic system. But anyway, per the Health Department, or Board of Health, until the sewer has been installed and that we can hook up to sewer, then we can come back and request the remaining lots to be released. Well, when we with you, the first time, we had to guess at which lots we wanted released, and of course, we guessed wrong in a couple of instances. We're building 3 houses. We've completed Lot 5, we're completing Lot 7 and Lot 3 now, and we have a buyer and a house being designed for Lot 6, which is still in the covenant. So what we would like to do is to have you take Lot 4 back and release Lot 6, so that we will not have any more lots than allowed to be released, and you will still hold what is necessary. So that is our request.
You want us to take back 4
Yep,
and release 6,
yes.
okay? Anybody on the board have any questions about what they're looking for? Okay. Charlene, do you have any comment on this?
Not at all. This is reasonable. You've actually done it once before. You switched out, 2 had been released and 7 wanted to be
Or 3,
built,
I
or,
think it
yeah.
was.
So
Yeah,
you've done this before. They've paid a filing fee. We're good.
Okay.
So I did provide a motion, a couple motions.
We have them, okay?
So,
Okay.
I move that, the planning board, vote to approve and endorse a new planning board agreement and covenant for Lot 4 on Bascom Hollow subdivision. And further, move to approve and endorse the release of Lot 6 from the planning board agreement and covenant recorded at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds in book 31370, page 49.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Anybody in the audience? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. And by the
Okay.
way, I was remiss, we have a new member of our board who's, I think, an alternate? Is that
Yes.
what you were appointed? Okay. And glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
We need the bodies.
Looking forward to it.
We look forward to having you.
Okay. Regular pen's okay.
Regular pen's okay in this one.
Do you want this back for your file?
That's nice mom's by the sign. Bascom Hollow. I drive by it every day.
yeah,
It is a nice sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I
We
like
worked
the-
hard on it with Charlene.
Very
I
festive.
like the stone.
Yes,
Yeah, very
I like
festive.
the stone.
yeah. It took a little,
Below mine.
it does look, I think it looks nicer than,
Big,
what-
small, yeah, smaller than bigger.
yeah,
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 and it's effective,
yeah.
You certainly see it when you come down.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's 2 documents going around for you all to sign, not you, Arthur. And then Mr. Duncan, if you're not feeling well.
I think I'm doing all right.
Okay. If you want, or we can do it tomorrow and you can pick it up.
That's fine, yeah, I'm good with that.
All
All right, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
We'll do that.
Will.
I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, so if you wanna give Elaine a call and just go, can you get those done?
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave her a pile, but
Here, take this one.
thank you. And thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is a matter involving Daniel W. O'Leary and Donna C. Gall. Represented by J.M. O'Reilly and Sons.
And sons,
Associates.
associates.
I think your daughter would be upset with that.
My son is planned to be a park ranger, so he has no interest in engineering or surveying. Good evening. For the record, I am John O'Reilly with J.M. O'Reilly and Associates. We were engaged by Mr. O'Leary and Ms. Gall to simply create a 800 square foot land swap. The reason for this is that there was a masonry wall when Mrs. Gall's house was built that was encroached onto Mr. O'Leary's lot. So this is trying to put the majority of the wall back onto Mrs. Gall's lot. Lots remain compliant as far as area and frontage, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have a note that says comments from, at least document that I have, from engineering and health were pending.
We did not hear from either of them, so
I understand.
they knew when things were coming up, so no issue.
We'll hear from the town planner.
Thank you. So the board on an approval not required plan has 3 options available to it. 1, vote to endorse the approval not required plan. 2, deny the approval not required plan, specifically detailing why it does not meet the requirements for endorsement, or you can take no action. So this proposal, in my opinion, does meet the minimum criteria for endorsement of an approval not required plan pursuant to section 400-9 of the Harwich Town Code and Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81P, which only requires that adequate frontage for the zoning district be shown, and that's 150 feet. And adequate access, this is Deleuze Drive, which was approved by the planning board back in the early 2000s. A general note, the plan is a bit confusing as there are 2 Lot Bs shown in the plan, but it is the small, narrow, triangular pieces which I've highlighted on people who got the smaller plans, and it's also highlighted on the screen above. In my opinion, this warrants endorsement by the board. You do have findings of fact that I've provided for you and a suggested motion.
Give members of the board a chance to look at it for a minute. Just while they're doing that, Charlene, in other words, engineering and health were informed
They were informed,
and
and they actually had
apparently
extra time, because
apparently chose not to.
they had no, yeah,
Comments.
we received nothing back from them,
Okay,
so.
all right.
And we actually did have an extra 2 weeks, because as you know, this was supposed to have come up on October 22nd, but due to a
Posting, wasn't it? Advertising?
posting, oops, on the website, we had to continue this. And they did graciously offer an extension of the time in which the board had to act. They could have just said, we'll just have the town clerk sign it, but decided to go forward before this board.
Probably good for your title. Okay, go ahead.
So this just appears to be a rotation of the axis on which the property line divides
exactly what it is.
by a matter of, looks like a few degrees.
Yeah.
Just, what is it, approximately how many feet on each side? Is that 11? I couldn't make it.
On on Deleuze Drive,
It's 11 and a half.
Miss Gall is gaining 11.27 feet.
Right, okay.
And in the rear line, she's losing
20 feet.
20.56. It's not a, it's not an exact
perfectly
angle,
asymmetrical,
but yes,
right.
but you phrased it well.
Actually, you phrased that really well. That was a good explanation. So it's just this one. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a random question?
Go ahead, sure.
The little triangle,
So this is actually just.
lot 3 and B, is that purchased from the town of Harwich?
Yes.
Okay.
Which you don't see
Yep.
very often.
Mr. O'Leary, after he had purchased Lot 3 on Deleuze,
In order to get the square footage?
and, no, you can see how it impacts
Oh, okay,
his
gotcha.
lot, and he entered into negotiations with the Gulf to buy that triangle, so he now has, he
Gotcha.
actually has a pool being built in the backyard now.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I bet it's landscaped very nicely.
To a T.
You need not say this too loud. Cliffy Deleuze might try to reclaim it. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. And we need a motion to vote to adopt.
Well, you have findings to adopt, and then
Yeah.
the vote.
So I move to adopt the following findings of fact. It said plan does not constitute a subdivision as the way shown on a plan. As the way shown on a plan, a subdivision road approved by the planning board provides safe and adequate access.
Second.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments about that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done.
And I further move that this board endorse the approval not required plan entitled Plan of Land in Harwich, Massachusetts, surveyed and prepared for Daniel W. O'Leary and Donna C. Gall, prepared by J.M. O'Reilly and Associates, Inc., dated October 7, 2009, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Okay, you got some signage.
Thank you.
It's dry in here.
This one takes the special pen. The paper copy can be any pen you got. Yeah, and you do have to hold the pen as up and down as possible. Otherwise, it doesn't like that. And if you're a lefty, it really doesn't
Right,
like
that's
you.
why
I'm sorry.
Charlene, while you're doing that, if you can do two things. I have a note that there's a hearing November 14th at 3 PM at the Cape Cod Commission.
Yes, there is, sir.
Where is that?
It is, let me give you the address. It's on Route 6A.
Where in the court complex? I figured.
The old building at the back of the lot.
Where in the old jail building? In that
If-
classroom?
The east wing, it's a new,
Okay.
it's like
I know
there's a
where it
ramp.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
so,
in
so
there.
if you look at
The
the old jail
furthest-
building, it's on the left-hand side.
Right.
There's a ramp going up there.
On the left-hand side?
On the left-hand side of,
Main building, not on the right-hand side with a great big,
To the left, you drive past the
Yep.
building, past the main entrance, it's there, and then there's parking down.
yeah. There's the Harbor View Room, and then there is the East Wing Conference Room. And
Okay.
it's in the East Wing Conference Room. And I did hear from Sarah Korjeff at the Cape Cod Commission today and said it is very important for people to come out and support this at the meeting next Thursday at 3 o'clock. So I did share that with all of you, the selectmen. For some reason, Duncan, Sally's email vanished. So if you could share that with her, I can't, it just wouldn't pop up
Which one was this? An announcement of
for
this
the
meeting?
announce,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
You don't need to do.
Because I know she'll spread the word.
Yeah, she does. That she does.
Which is a good thing. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Smart.
Oh, I've seen that happen before. Oh,
That's yours.
that's mine. Thank you. The date. Today's 7th. Should have done this first.
comes home from some of these meetings, huh?
Thank you very much.
Just wait. Just wait till we start doing two every week.
Oh, I know.
Oh, do you want the elastics?
Yeah, I would love those.
You're welcome. And those are for me, thank you. Bless you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Okay, nice to see you.
Bye,
Okay,
John.
next matter is Pine Harbor Wood Products. Before we begin, you and your brother own and operate this business?
We used to. I am the sole owner.
Okay,
We were partners for quite some time, but about 4 years ago, he left the company.
Okay.
Out on his own, doing stuff.
And is your father still alive?
He's not.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, about 4 years ago, about the same time.
Uh-huh. Okay, this is Pine Harbor Wood Products, and we'll hear from a representative, Mr. James R. McGrath.
Evening. Jamie McGrath, go by Jamie, and I am the owner of Pine Harbor Wood Products on Queen Anne Road. We have been there for about 23 years now. And way back when we first bought and started building on the property, my father we had a sawmill building back there where this new proposed building would go. And the building was permitted, but it was an open-sided shed, had no walls, it had a roof and just open sides. And my father, as I miss him dearly, but as was he liked to do, he would add on and not really get permits and not do things. And he said, oh, it's just a sawdust shed, and he just this and just that. Before you know it, the building was 3,000 square feet. And it was never insulated, and it's got a little bit of insulation tucked in there, here and there. But it's kind of, and I meant to bring pictures, and I thought of it over here. It's kind of got valleys that come together, and it was just a mishmash of different structures as he added on and didn't think anybody would notice or care. But it was never done correctly, and it's got no heat, no insulation, and really no foundation under it. It was a couple of posts with some sonotubes and a little slab in there and that sort of thing. So needless to say, as we've moved forward a little bit over the years, this building has been kind of one of our things to get to when we could. And our original plan was dated in 2015, and we've been actually too busy to get to this. So our intention is really just to kind of make this, he added over, I think he thought, hey, the property setback's 20 feet for small sheds and stuff on the property, it must be 20 feet for in the industrial, so he built right over the property lines. Not to throw him under the bus, because he's not here to defend himself, but it was entirely his fault. And I warned him every step of the way, actually, but he was not one to listen. Who's gonna know and who's gonna care? So here I am to basically say that, good job, Dad, but it was non-conforming, it was kind of a disaster, and we need to put this thing and get some employees with maybe some heat and a real roof. It leaks in between all these roofs, and we've done the best we could with this thing for years, and it's time to kind of get rid of this building and put something on a foundation and make it a real building. Essentially, it will have the exact same use. It's a little bit longer, about 10 feet, 12 feet longer, just to kind of accommodate a little bit more. While we're doing it, we want to do it right. We don't want to, we have, about 30 feet between buildings here, and we didn't want to, there's one little shed that jutted out. There used to be a fuel tank in there that's long gone. So essentially, we're trying to do the same sort of thing. The mission of the building remains the same. We pre-cut some components in there, and we kind of prefab some of our sheds and small buildings and stock windows and doors and components to our buildings. We've got about 2 or 3 employees in there. The building as it is right now, we can't even actually get a forklift in there. The walls are too short, and it's got no floor, so it's dirt underneath plywood and that sort of thing. So it's very inefficient for us, and we'd like to get rid of that old thing and put up something a little bit nicer.
And what is your product? What do you sell?
Most of our biggest, I guess you'd say our biggest thing is we do everything for the outdoors, from fence and pergolas and arbors, but this particular building and most of our manufacturing process down here is for sheds. We build 2, 3, 4 garden sheds, small buildings, kind of pool cabanas.
You have them out on the main road?
Some of them are out on the main road, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Anybody question?
My question is the sawmill now gone?
Sawmill has been gone for about 9 years, yeah. 8 or 9 years, unfortunately, but fortunately.
And, can you operate Without the sawmill, obviously.
Yeah, it got to the point where, you know, that's a long story, but we paid more to get eastern white pine logs to the Cape on a truck than we can for a finished product, and without the byproduct and the slab wood and the.
So you buy it all?
And our mill was from the 1950s. It was more of a convenience thing than it was a real process. It was things we cut for ourselves. Bill might remember back in the day, we certainly sold timbers and wide boards, and we did some specialty products.
Hours to
when
go in there to buy stuff, but now they don't.
Yeah, we kind of got out of the retail lumber thing down there, so we.
So you sell wholesale now?
No, we just don't sell lumber at all. Basically, we bring in material, we use it for our own buildings, and we sell a couple boards to past customers that need, you know, that we've been doing sheds down on the
So
Cape.
what
for
is the
35
product, what do you sell? What-
Sheds, outdoor furniture,
Oh, I see, you
arbors.
said that,
We,
okay.
yeah, we do retail those buildings out of the property, and we have a facility in Hyannis as well. It's kind of our main showroom.
I've seen that, yeah. So if Johnny Jones wants a shed, he comes to you, orders the shed.
Yep,
You folks build it on site
correct.
and deliver it.
That's right. Well, we don't build the full building there, but we prefab most of the components. So we build walls and floor components, so we kind of, everything that we do down there is cutting and, you know, prefabbing most of the units, and then they go out in walls and floors and pre-cut roof components and get assembled on location.
Do you still sell kits?
Yes.
In the spirit of disclosure, I think the shed in my backyard came from your
I
place
wouldn't
of
be
business.
surprised.
I have two Adirondack chairs from there.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Health had no issues or concern. Engineering, the town engineer and the town planner reviewed the application and plan together. There were no concerns or issues. Police and fire have no concerns. Again, this is a public meeting matter, not a public hearing. And as noted, the engineer, in the engineering comments, we did review this plan together, and we had absolutely no concerns, issues, questions, nothing. It'll make for a much safer building for his employees. There's no increase in employees, no need for more parking. It's very simple.
All the setbacks will be bent.
All the setbacks will be met, so,
And we're removing an encroachment.
And
Yeah,
we are
those
indeed.
those used to be other parts of the property up here, and I don't think he knew that he moved it right over the property line, but there's two old sheds that were up in there when we did some of this other stuff, which was permitted correctly. Those got moved back and just kind of were supposed to be removed and haven't been. Matter of fact, they're really falling apart at this point, so we need to go.
And what's the total size of your lot?
3¼ acres.
Okay.
torn down and rebuilt.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, we don't have to close the public hearing because it
You
wasn't.
do not, and actually Arthur gets to vote on this because it falls under site plan review, even though it's a waiver, so
Okay,
if he feels comfortable voting at this point, he can, otherwise you can abstain, whatever you'd like.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the following findings of fact. One, that the parcel is in the IL zoning district. Two, the application does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site and to abutting properties and structures. Three, the existing site, which is currently used for the assembly of products and the retail sale of products, is suitable for the proposed use. Four, there will be no increase in the number of employees. Five, the existing building is non-conforming and the new building will conform to setback requirements.
second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
So I further move that the board vote to approve case number PB 2019-42 for Pine Harbor Wood Products. James R. McGrath, president, for a waiver of site plan pursuant to the code of the town of Harwich, section 325-55.f, to raise a non-conforming storage shop shed and replace it with a conforming 44-foot by 84-foot open building operating the same use. The property is located at 259 Queen Anne Road, map 58, parcel N10-1, in the I-L zoning district. The decision is based on the findings of fact stated and the fact that the proposal does not substantially change the relationship of the structure to the site or to abutting properties and structures, and the application meets the necessary requirements and criteria for approval.
And second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Sir?
I think that said that the new building would be open-sided, which it will not be.
No, it just means it'll be an open floor plan.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is, yeah, there are
I'm
no
sure I didn't
interior
speak
petitions.
incorrectly.
I'm sorry.
No, it does
'cause
say
the old
open, it
building-
just
Building.
means open, not open to the weather, interior, one big building.
Sorry, yep.
Yeah, not a bunch of rooms.
Just want to make sure you didn't expect it to not have walls. We want this one to have walls.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
And we'll get that decision done by next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we wanna have a zoning amendment discussion?
So around this time of year, every year that I've been your planner, I bring forward to you just some ideas regarding zoning amendments, and I've provided you with a bunch of information. Last year, as you may recall, and for those who weren't here last year, the board actually sponsored four zoning amendments, all which passed town meeting unanimously. Woo-hoo! And that was the accessory apartment by right, the temporary portable signs, retaining walls related to septic systems, and building heights in flood zones. This year, some things that have come to light are, we have an existing definition of essential services, and it's listed in the use table. It is in direct conflict with the definition of municipal use, and where that is allowable. All essential service uses are special permit, all municipal uses are permitted, but they're in direct conflict with one another because the essential services lists municipal uses under essential services, including water, sewer, harbor, and a number of other things. In talking with, and that, when they were doing the pumping stations for the sewer in East Harwich, they had to go to the zoning board of appeals to get variances from setbacks and other sundry things to put some of the pumping on some of the locations that they're at. If they were in road right-of-ways, it didn't need one because it wasn't on a lot. If it was on somebody's lot that we had an easement for, it needed to go to the zoning board of appeals to get a use special permit and all kinds of other things. So in talking with Amy Questle from Copeland and Page about this, she, when we discussed that it needed to go through all this stuff, it was like, well, I don't think that was the intent. And then when we really started looking at what was under essential services, we were like, okay, the water department's never come in, and, you know, so her recommendation is that we actually eliminate essential services, eliminate the definition, and eliminate it from the use table. So that's one thing. I don't know if you want to discuss these as we go, or just however you'd like to do this.
Go ahead, Mary.
So I have a couple of questions, because all essential services aren't necessarily municipal services.
Right.
So, I mean, I would really,
I mean,
I'd more look to see, carve municipal out of essential, or give that an exemption. But I'm not so sure that a pumping station on a private property shouldn't have to go to a variance if it's,
well, it needed a use special permit.
okay, from them as opposed to from us.
Yeah. It needed to go to zoning board of appeals.
Instead of, I'm just trying to work it out in my head.
Instead of coming to us, it has to go.
Instead of coming to
Yeah.
us, it went to them.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I would.
But you also, I
I'm
mean,
thinking of it, that
yeah.
it shouldn't be any treated, a
yeah,
sewer install shouldn't be treated any different than a septic install. What if you're encroaching, you know, if you need a variance from your setbacks, then you need a variance from your setbacks,
but I mean, it's, you know, it includes, you know, gas and electric distribution have never come to the town for a special permit. Those are essential services. You need electricity and, you know,
Right.
we need
Well,
gas.
they're public utilities, so.
Exactly.
You can't
So,
sell
and town-owned marinas, docks, fishing, offloading facilities, jetties, those have never, ever been permitted with a special permit. I mean, it just,
They probably should be.
A jetty requires approval from conservation, waterways, and Chapter 91 license. I mean, they're covered by everybody and their uncle. So we don't need to make a decision tonight, but it's definitely a conversation that we need to have, and we need to fix it because it's definitely in conflict.
Speaking of jetties,
Agreed.
they need, the one at Allen Harbor needs.
So how long has that been?
Oh, I know. Well, and what should happen is, it should come out and bend like Witchmere does. In other words, they should add a bend at the front of it.
Good luck. Good luck with your Chapter 91 license.
So they
I know that. Oh, I know the problem. Yeah.
put all the rocks in front of that person's house. Keep driving.
Well, no, I'm not going that way. I'm coming back the other way. In other words, down the channel
Yeah.
and bend it to the left.
The east.
So
Just
then-
the same way that
No
Witchmere
hazard.
is.
Oh, that's to the west, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We had put a lot of stones in to protect that one house on that west side.
Oh, I know.
Created that
Yeah,
little
yeah.
pond.
I remember that. Maybe that's the problem, but I've been around too long.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
A question, any of you that have been on the board for a long time, or anybody, do we know why, when this was originally written, section 3.325-2, essential services was created, or?
Well, that's just the definition, and no,
I mean,
I
why?
tried to find, and I
Some
couldn't,
history, yeah.
yeah, I
Sometimes
couldn't,
it just happens and
So-
the
yeah.
definition gets added
yeah,
and something gets changed later and nobody thinks about it.
yeah.
You also gotta define whether it's a municipal electric company or gas company
Right.
or whatever,
Right,
compared to a private.
right.
But like, under here is system for telecommunications, well, that falls under a totally separate section of the bylaw and provision of Mass General Law, so that's covered someplace else, so. I mean, in my opinion, the definition and use of essential services is not necessary. Because like the electric company, gas company, they fall under different provisions of,
I still think you're gonna have some that are essential that aren't gonna be municipal.
think about it and we'll talk about it more.
I think a private, yeah, I think even a private ambulance company coming, or I'm trying to think of other random,
But is that an essential service? Would that, under the definition, fall under this? I
maybe not,
would argue not,
but
yeah.
So will
I
they
think
have
there
to
are
go-
some that might be there.
So with all these new surge hookups.
That's why we need to look at the other definitions to see, but
There'll be
this,
a lot of zoning appeals for that. I mean, it's just gonna be.
Go ahead.
Do other towns have this as well?
we can do some looking, yeah.
I'd be curious. I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if they're in conflict and just ignore essential services and go with municipal. I don't know, no. It was a long time ago that I, oh, no, I don't. No, I don't. Okay, another,
Chatham has is our former planning director.
yes, and she's doing very well there. She's doing a great job.
I see in the paper.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The next is multifamily dwellings. I was actually at a affordable housing meeting, and I'm like, oh yeah, we don't allow multifamily, and then I went and looked, I'm like, why, George, we do. And it's ridiculous what the requirements are for multifamily. Far more restrictive than that for, it uses number of bedrooms per acre. That is far more restrictive than even Title V, where these are located. So, and if you, I tried to highlight in the documents that I gave you, anytime multifamily came up. Right now, area regulations in the MRL zoning district and the MRL1 zoning district. In MRL, you need 10 acres of land to do a multifamily,
Good luck.
but no more than 25 acres.
10 contiguous.
Well, why, I don't know, but kind of weird. And in the MRL1, you need a minimum of 8 contiguous acres and a maximum of 4 bedrooms per acre.
think this is essential before the trust starts building, decides they want to build townhouses or.
That would be
multifamily.
done as a 40B. You know,
Right.
there's still the 40B provision, but if,
they could also do it outside of 40B too, if we actually have.
they,
an allowable-
absolutely,
have it as an
absolutely.
allowable use.
Right, right. But there are property, I mean, I've had folks come in to me and say, hey, I've got this property and I would love to do 6 units. And I'm like, you can't. What do you mean? I said, look at it, you show them the bylaw and they're like, you're kidding me. I'm like, nope. So where multifamily is allowed right now, I'm gonna call the high rent district, quite honestly. You've got the Belmont, Witchmere, Harbor, you know, a couple other places where, you know, I mean, very expensive. You know, the idea of multifamily is to have housing, decent housing available for people who can not, I'm not talking 40B affordable, I'm talking worker housing that is affordable.
Certainly, as you say, the stuff down at Witchmere is not.
Yeah, no, I don't know anybody sitting at, maybe if we combined all our money, we might be able to afford one. Not that, you know, they're beautiful, but, you
Those
know,
waterfront units, over $1 million.
Oh, wow.
oh,
Well
like,
over.
Yeah,
like
or
three,
or
Yeah.
3 or 4 million,
Right?
yeah, yeah. So the idea here, and remember last year we did apartments, accessory apartments by right, to make it easier. I think we really need to look at these bylaws for multifamily, to look at where they should be allowable, perhaps not by right, let's take baby steps, allowable by special permit. Obviously, you know, in water recharge areas, you know, need to look there, and that is very strict, 10,000 square feet per bedroom, that goes without saying. But looking at some other areas where there may be land available, some larger parcels that we know are available. I had an entity that has quite a large piece of land who had a pretty innovative idea for some multifamily housing with a community building, you know, and some other things. But they didn't want to go the 40B route. They wanted to do it, you know, with the town backing it and everything else. Because sometimes 40Bs can be contentious. We all know that. So if this was something that was allowable, and I said, you can't do it in the zoning district you're in. I said, the only way you can do it is with a 40B or getting a use variance or land area variance. And we don't really want to encourage that because variances are supposed to be hard to get. So.
Sir?
What is the new, currently under construction, Stone Horse?
Those are dormitories.
Those are dormitories. Remember
That-
you came in with those?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't know if that
Yep.
was considered multi.
No, in that case, it wouldn't be. Those got a use variance to be able to do that development down there. And then it came before this board under site plan review. I mean, I would still propose that it would come under, you know, come before this board for use special permit and design review. We'd have to do a little tweaking on the site plan review, because obviously there are things, commercial elements in site plan review that don't lend themselves to multifamily.
My memory correct, Marsh is building those, isn't he?
No.
No.
Wasn't he in with,
No, that, Ron
We
Rudnick,
haven't found out who's in ownership with that, but there are multiple people who own that.
oh, okay.
I understand.
the dormitories? Yeah, Ron Rudnick is the lead on that,
Lead on it, yeah.
yeah,
And he
Lighthouse
came in and
Realty.
he-
I think it's supposed to be restaurant owners
They're not anymore.
They were at the
They were at the
beginning.
beginning, yeah.
that are in that.
that
Is that
need a
all
place
that's
for
gonna
their
be leased
employees.
in there for the time being? It's just dormitory?
And the main building up
But
front.
that's gonna be.
Okay, anything else, Charlene?
I'm
No,
sorry.
no. And then the last is any zoning that would be associated with the West Harwich DCPC. That's something that, even though the selectmen were the nominators of that, you know, if this board is not interested in participating in the zoning for that area, which I really hope you would be, you still have to hold the public hearing. So if it's co-sponsored by this board as well as the Board of Selectmen, I think it goes a lot further. like the accessory apartment.
I'd
That
like to
was,
appoint the gentleman on my left as being the guy responsible for keeping track of that.
yep,
There you go.
yep.
Aye. All in favor? Aye.
Yep. So those, will be going forward. And even if for some reason the commission doesn't approve it, or it does approve it and it goes to the assembly and the assembly doesn't approve it, we need to do some zoning changes there.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you to Charlene, did you give us, I'm trying to remember, I want to say that you gave us copies of the Chatham Historic Business District regulations?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might be a nice place to start for background.
Yep, actually, there are some examples out there that we can, in the zoning and planning world, you beg, borrow, and steal. Because if it,
Never reinvent the wheel.
never reinvent the wheel. And there are some examples out there of some things that we can do, I think quite, easily. So we'll be looking at some of that. One of the things we need to talk about, and this will be with the commission staff, assuming, this all moves forward, is, having the underlying zoning be something a little bit different, and maybe having an overlay district on top of it to even allow for a little bit more. I mean, those are some things we need to go over and talk about.
If I remember correctly, we ran into that when we were talking about changing the zoning in the port, because your underlying zoning,
Yep.
you have a little more control for.
Right, and-
For some waivers if you have an overlay district than if you are changing your underlying zoning.
Exactly. And a
I know the thought is
DCPC,
that an underlying
Yeah.
zoning should change, but
Yeah.
then any waiver really goes to zoning board of appeals as opposed to this board.
exactly. And the Six Pond Special District is an overlay district. It's still zoned R, but it has the Six Pond
Right.
overlay over it. So, those are the things we have to work through with the commission, and they will be helping us along the way.
Yeah.
The team that has been assigned to us, I'm very excited to be working with them. I've had the pleasure of working with them before, and look forward to working with them again on this.
Actually, that gentleman who chaired that meeting here,
John, yep,
I think was a member of this board.
John Eidman he was on the finance committee.
Oh, okay.
He was on the
All right.
finance committee.
Edmund was a long time ago, I think, for like a year.
On this board?
Yes.
Was he okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then he went to finance.
Okay,
that
sure.
was AC and BC, after Charlene and before I came back.
Question, how does the zoning for the West Harwich DCPC fit into the work that we're going to be doing, we collectively, the town, for the local comprehensive plan?
Fits right in there.
So
But this will be done first.
so the zoning will be done first, and then that'll just kind of
Yep.
like be fill in the blanks into the
Exactly.
LCD?
Exactly, and what we do because I know, I've talked to one member on this board, I won't identify the person, who would like to see more of what is being proposed in the West Harwich DCPC area, maybe move to other areas of town. And once we have that done and under there, through the local comprehensive plan update, those would be examples of, this is what would be a good idea to do in this area, or in this area, or in this area. So,
If I may, was the thought to have it, to kind of build out the villages, the village aspects in the
Yeah.
in the 7 areas?
yep, yeah,
The background.
yeah.
Okay,
So those, and if there's other things, I've let the building commissioner know that it's time to think about zoning changes, because he runs into things in the zoning bylaw where he goes, what does this mean? And at some point, it really did mean something, but maybe the interpretation got lost along the way, and something may need to get tweaked, so I've asked him to look at his list of things to,
what's the committee that Dr. Dalgallo's on, that the building commissioner chairs?
I don't know who Dr. Delgado is, and
Dr.
the
Delgado
chair
is
in
The
the,
Board of Health.
Board of Health.
Yeah, but the building commissioner doesn't chair. the
he
Board of
doesn't
Health.
chair that.
Who chairs that?
Don Howell's wife. I only say that because I can't remember her name, Mrs. Howell.
Mrs. Howell. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
All right. I have 3 sets of minutes. So I've looked them over. They look to be appropriate to me. September 10th, September 24th, and October 8th. Could I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes for September 10th, 2019, September 24th, 2019, and October 8th, 2019, and place the same on file.
Thank you. I have looked briefly. I want to.
You need to take a vote.
You need a second.
You need a second and a vote.
Oh, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. I looked at the Howard Zoning Board of Appeals agenda. I don't see anything.
Oh, that's old, it's already happened.
Oh, I see that, October 3rd.
Yep. But you also did miss an item, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say.
You missed item Roman numeral 3A6, discuss and clarify some policy process procedure.
I'm sorry.
Bottom of the first page of your agenda.
All right, here. 6, discuss and clarify policy.
Okay. We have an item that says, discuss and clarify some policies, processes, and procedures. First off is, in quotes, second the motion for discussion purposes only. Somebody want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was something that had been mentioned at previous meetings, and actually it goes back to, I think, July. I have a handout here, if everybody could take one and pass it out. And it was as a result of discussions that Charlene and I had after the Harwich retail application was withdrawn without prejudice, and I needed some clarification on language and so on and so forth, and that prompted some further review. So what I've put together in the document, and really what I'm looking for, I'm not looking, I want to be very clear about this, I'm not looking to try to retroactively change anything that has happened in the past regards Harwich retail or anything else, but looking forward, making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of our understanding of what the processes and procedures are, should be, and that's the reason for this agenda item. So any questions about that?
So, yeah, I'm happy to take this one. A second, if somebody seconds a motion for discussion purposes only, that is the person telling you that they are not necessarily seconding your motion because they're in favor of it. They are giving you the courtesy so that the matter can be discussed. Because once a motion is made, it cannot be further discussed. So you need a second on the floor in order for the board to continue to discuss it under Robert's rules and under other parliamentary procedures. So that's something that's pretty straightforward and pretty normal in a parliamentary situation. And really, the comment for discussion purposes only is your board member giving you the courtesy of telling you that they're not necessarily endorsing the motion, but they're going to second it so that the board can have further discussion.
Does that then prompt or require after the discussion takes place, does that prompt somebody else or that same person to then make a second on the motion to move?
In order to get it voted on?
No, why would it? I don't believe it does.
I don't know.
To me, that's standard parliamentary
That would- if it-
language.
If it doesn't need another second, doesn't that, your explanation contradict?
No, because that's the person saying, it doesn't, what I'm saying is, Joe, you made a motion, I'll second it. I'll do you the courtesy of giving you the second so that the board can further discuss it. But if I'm seconding it for discussion purposes only on my part, that's just me telling you, I'm not necessarily giving you a vote.
I understand.
So that.
But his question is,
Yeah,
so you do the second for discussion purposes only.
you still have a
And-
motion and
and-
a second, and it needs a vote.
That's my question. In
Yeah.
other words, we then discuss it
Yeah,
in accordance with that motion. Now the question comes as to whether or not we're gonna vote it or not vote it. And you're telling me what, we need a new motion?
No, I don't
No.
think you do. You have a motion and a second on the floor, so you have to vote for it. The second for quote-unquote discussion purposes only is really just a courtesy. It's your board member just telling you the courtesy that, you know, if you're counting, if you, Joe, are making a motion, and you're counting votes in your head, I'm giving you a second, but don't necessarily count me as one of your favorables in the motion. So, but you still have a motion and a second on the floor, so you still have to vote, or you either have to have the motion rescinded, or you have to vote on the motion.
All right.
That's my general understanding.
Mr. Chair, so if you made a motion
Yep,
and I second it, and I'm like, for discussion purposes only, basically, I'm like, clarify what you're talking about, because
Yep.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
yep.
Okay,
And then after that, I'm like, okay. Then.
There's still
it
a
goes-
motion and a
There's still a
second.
motion and a second.
You're voting on the
You could
made
vote without
motion.
another motion, is what you're saying.
Right.
so I have a question.
Go ahead, then I'll get back to you.
The first person seconds it. Now, can another member say, I would like to second it for discussion?
No.
No,
You
it can
don't
only
need
be
that.
1 second, I think.
In my own personal opinion, the discussion for purposes only doesn't limit the second. It
Right.
is only notification telling you that there is that I'm not necessarily on board with the motion. So like if we have 5 members here and we're voting a special permit and there's a motion and it needs a unanimous, and I say I'm seconding for discussion purposes only, that should trigger the person making the motion to say, oh, I might not have my vote. So we either need to rescind, or we need to continue, or it's not gonna pass, and there's gonna be a 2-year.
And the board has done that before.
And there's gonna be a
Where
2-year
we knew we
delay,
weren't
right.
gonna have a vote. When I say we, I mean you guys. You knew you weren't gonna have the vote, so the motion was actually withdrawn, and the hearing was continued for further information.
You have further question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So is for discussion purposes only, basically redundant to what our practice is? Because, and the reason I ask that, I've always heard a motion is made, it's seconded, and the chairman says, any discussion? And,
As I
I mean,
said,
doesn't it?
to me, if I say that, that is me just telling you as the person who made the motion that I am not necessarily on board with the positive motion that's on the floor. But
Right.
I have questions, or I want the board to have further discussion, and once a motion's made, you can't do that without a second.
Correct, but the discussion would happen whether you said, I'm making a.
It might not. Joe could call for a vote right away.
Okay, so that's not a part of
He's
the.
the chair. He can
In other words,
call for an immediate vote if he
you-
wants.
You can move, second, and vote. You don't necessarily have to discuss.
Yeah, that's just been, I understand, but that's just been our practice, is
But
what
that's
I'm hearing, right?
Parliamentary procedure
Yeah.
in general.
Parliament, yeah,
I mean,
okay.
All right? Now you had
Okay.
another one.
Motion to accept request for withdrawal without prejudice, motion to close the public hearing. And as it said, the document that I attached is from the Harwich meeting document, and it states that I believe there needs to be a closing of the public hearing in addition to voting to accept the withdrawal with or without prejudice. And in my previous discussions, we've said, well, that's sort of redundant, or that's belts and suspenders. And so I'm looking for clarification, because I didn't see anything in the I don't know if it's regulations or the document that the town of Harwich has given us as guidance for conducting public hearings. And the reason that I'm saying that is if the applicant says, I would like to withdraw without prejudice, and we say, we don't close the public hearing, we simply say, okay, we make a motion to accept it and second it, and we vote. What if?
For the withdrawal?
Yeah. What if somebody on the board or someone in the audience wanted to say, well, I don't agree that it should be without prejudice. I think it should be with prejudice. Or they have some further comment or question after that.
That's exactly,
Tough shit.
that's the board.
Okay, you are being recorded, so watch your
Scrub that,
language.
please.
Okay.
No, they can't bleep out swears.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I mean,
Dibs on it.
we can certainly ask town council for a legal opinion as to whether closing the public hearing is necessary. I'm not so sure that it makes a difference one way or another,
It-
without looking at a whole bunch of, we could, if the chair wanted to ask for a legal opinion, the chair could ask for a legal opinion to answer the question, but you allow a withdrawal without prejudice for a reason, so that they can come back within 2 years and reapply. So, because if you close the public hearing, you have X number of, you have to vote within so many days of closing a public hearing, so.
In my 33 years of doing this, if a request for withdrawal without prejudice has been made, there's never a closing of the public hearing. It's as if it never happened.
That
You
has been
do
my
this?
experience as well. But I'm saying, if the chair would like to ask for an opinion on that, that's the only person that can answer the question for us.
Could you be kind enough to get that question through our council?
If it's allowed,
Now, we have
I can only ask.
don't we have, in other words, we have our own council.
We do, but we still need permission, so
Permission from who?
town administrator. I don't have the right to just call council.
Oh, you don't?
No.
And town council is not our council. We have separate council.
We have Adam Costa, who's not with Copeland and
No matter
Page.
who you're calling,
D-
departments have to get it cleared.
Regardless, yeah.
And
And-
is he with Copeland and Page?
No.
Costa? Where's
He's
he?
with Mead, Tellerman and Costa, or Mead,
Yeah.
Costa and Tellerman.
Yep.
Where are they?
Lisa Mead is, I think they're up in Newburyport is one of their locations.
I
Oh, wonderful.
don't know.
Lisa used to be the, Lisa was.
I talked to him through email.
I just gonna say, don't invite him to a beer.
Yeah, really.
We'll have to pay for that ride.
I don't know what Adam had done before, but Lisa was the mayor in Newburyport and was city solicitor in Somerville before the current, with the prior mayor to the
Lisa?
current. Lisa Mead, isn't the Mead, from Mead, Costa
That's
and
not the
Tellerman.
woman who just got appointed as the clerk. Lawyer from, a woman from, who was solicitor in Somerville, got appointed the clerk of the, I think.
That could be her.
These that we just.
Well, the question is, can you, I think you'd feel better, can you submit this to our erstwhile council? Would we have to,
I will fill out the request for legal opinion.
okay, and Joe will have to
Yep.
respond to you, and if he says okay,
Then it'll go to Adam Costa, and if he says no, and he is an expert in parliamentary procedure, so he may just say, I know that
whatever he
ain't
says, he
wrong."
says, I don't care, it
Yeah.
just, I think he has an issue, and we ought to be able to resolve it. Okay, and you had one last piece, I
No,
think,
he's got two
didn't
more.
you?
I have, yes, I have two more. The next is documents made a part of the record. Again, the handbook says that I attached on here that, excuse me, documents or other exhibits, I don't need to read it, but to be made part of the official record, they have to be used by the body. And I interpret that to mean a review, a discussion, something along those lines, being used by the planning board. If a document is prepared, but it's never used, discussed, brought up, referenced, whatever, by the planning board, why would we make it a permanent part of the record? And that is specifically something that happened, again, with the whole Harwich, Harwich retail application, where Charlene had prepared, at the board's direction, a draft document to submit to the Cape Cod Commission when we were considering the limited discretionary review, if I remember correctly. And it was never discussed because the applicant withdrew without prejudice. But that document was made a permanent part of the record.
Because it was a public document that was distributed.
Yeah.
Right.
To the board.
So it has to be part
has to
of
be
the
part of the
public
record.
record.
Has to be.
Anything that's, if I may, Mr.
Sure,
Chair.
go ahead.
Anything that's submitted, whether you've looked at it or not, is part of the public record. So, you know, you might not get, when we get the minutes here to approve, our minutes are stripped of the attachments, but the record on file in the planning office has everything that was submitted. We can't just have something, nothing disappears. So if it was
like an exhibit.
distributed, yeah, if it was distributed, she's gotta keep it in the file.
So the words used by the body at an open session.
It was, she handed it out, so, I mean,
And so that's what you consider used by, because it was passed out?
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not,
Okay.
I'm also not looking to the handbook that we hand out as, you know, fully encompassing all of Mass General laws either. I mean,
Yeah,
it's specifically a handbook to give board members guidelines of
Sure.
things to take
Sure.
note of, but.
Yeah. And that's why I brought it up, Mary, because I read these things and I interpreted it one way and somebody else may interpret it the other way. And my objective is that we all have the same interpretation. So as we go forward, if it comes up again, we've discussed it and we know what it means. We're all coming from the same place.
Yeah,
That's all.
I personally don't think we have any part in the discussion as to what's made a part of the record. The record is the record. It's what's filed and what's submitted. And if there are 37 letters that are filed and Charlene prepares a staff report for us, that's all part of the record. Like whether we've asked for it, whether we've been given it, whether it's fallen out of the sky onto our table, it is what it is. If it's filed, it's filed. So I really don't think we have a role in deciding what is or
If it
isn't
comes
part of the
before-
record.
If it comes before us, it's part of the record, as far as I'm concerned.
If it's in
Whether
the-
we
yeah,
talk about it
whether
or
it's a piece
not.
of
Yeah.
paper, it's part of the
Right.
record.
Yeah, okay. So, and once, in this particular case, once that motion to, a request to withdraw without prejudice was approved by the board, anything that may have come to the board or to Charlene after that would not be a part of the record.
I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think if somebody sent something in, they'd probably file it in the file. I don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily.
It gets stamped, date stamped, goes in.
I mean, you could note that it came in after the fact,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't.
Question about, when you start talking about the record, what, I think in terms of trial practice, you know, whatever is in the record when you're before the judge becomes part of the record, okay? Because we have a certain process we have to go in to have it be accepted as a document in evidence. Let's talk about the referral to the Cape Cod Commission for limited DRI.
Yeah, and this is just, I'm kind of throwing this out here because I think we probably would all agree we struggled as to our approach initially about deciding or discussing whether we would make a referral for the limited DRI. And there are, as we recall, certain categories. So my question is, for future reference, does it make sense to have an understanding among the board members how we would approach this? In other words, and I think I laid it out, would we discuss the the merits of each category and perhaps vote or not vote on them, and then vote on what we want to see as part of if we're going to approve the request for the DRI? Or do we identify those categories and have the DRI? And the reason that I ask that question is, if, for example, there were 3 categories for the DRI, cultural, I don't know, pick something, and economic. And I disagreed that the economic category fit into the referral for limited DRI. If we don't discuss those and vote upon those individually to make it part of the package, then I would have to vote no, even though I'm in favor of the DRI and I am in favor of the
But you're not in favor of some portion of it.
Right, so,
And if I may, that's what you do, you vote against it. I mean, I don't, I'm struggling with us trying to figure out here how we're gonna deal with something that may or may not ever come before us. It's really up to the chair to run his meeting, how he wants to run his meeting, and to, if an application's before us, we look to the chair, and the chair should have the authority to say how we're gonna run through an application. It's, I don't see the necessity for us to sit here and limit the chair as to how he's gonna look at something. Everything's individual. We're the composition of the board on this given day, at this given night, and on any given day when an application comes before us, it could be a whole different group of people. So, and the chair at the time should have the ability to run his meeting the way he wants to run his meeting. If he wants us to discuss on each piece, he could ask us to do that, or he could just ask for a general motion. If you don't agree with something, you can say, I'll second for discussion purposes only, because I have some questions. And then we can have questions and you seek to get an amended motion. But, I just don't, I understand the questions, I just don't I don't see the benefit in us limiting the chair and how he's gonna run his meeting. And that's what I think your comments do, whether that's your intention or not, I just think that's what it does.
okay. I can clarify,
Correct.
that is not my intention whatsoever. I guess maybe I spoke too strongly about it, and what I'm looking for is sort of, what do we think is best practice? Chairman doesn't have to follow what we think is best practice, but what, does anything that I just explained about why I'm asking the question make sense?
Well, it does, but I think, what Mary's really saying is, it's up to me as the chairman, and if somebody succeeded me as chairman, they might not do it the same way.
Sure, absolutely.
I tell a tale on myself. I sat in this same slot in the town of Braintree for many years. And the League of Women Vultures,
Holy cow. Did you hear that?
they didn't like the way I ran the meeting. And they used to come and sit in the front row every meeting I held for about 3 years. And I'd greet them, good evening, ladies, nice to see you, and I still ran the meeting the way I wanted to run it, so. I agree with Mary.
Thanks, Joe. That was a long way around.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think we have anything else.
I have one thing in your packets. I provided you with a copy of a memo that I sent to administration and the Board of Selectmen regarding the update of the Harwich Local Comprehensive Plan. I just want you to know what I'm up to and what I'm doing. It is up to the Board of Selectmen to appoint a local planning committee. It can be this board. You guys have way too much to do, in my opinion. And having been involved in this process in other communities on Cape, I think a committee made up of representation from a variety of boards and committees in town is really the proper way to go. So, it's entirely up to the Board of Selectmen how they want to do it. So I don't know when or if this will be before them, but we did get $200,000, which I'd like to try and spend some of that before I'm gone, so I don't have people yelling at me about, what have we done with $200,000?
Make payable to James.
So just letting you know what
Do you want,
I'm up
do you
to.
want me to come before the Board of Selectmen when it's before them?
if the board agrees that you think it should be made up of a variety of individuals in the community and not just this board, I mean, just look at what you guys have done so far this year. I mean, holy Moses.
The volume.
You have been extremely busy. We have already brought in $56,000 in filing fees. That is at least $12,000 more than your highest year in the last 10 years. So, wow. Yeah, you guys, I think you are way too busy to, as a group, try to tackle what needs to be done with the local comprehensive plan.
I think we should have a representative from the. planning
Oh,
board on
absolutely.
it.
It says,
Yeah, somebody from this board.
it has planning board, real estate and open space, conservation, board of health, water commissioners, housing committee or trust, historic, rec and youth, waterways, youth services, traffic, safety, chamber of commerce, and probably some members at large. It's gonna be a big group, and it
It's a
really
big
needs to be.
task.
It's a huge task
And tell me again their task?
to,
Local
to write the
comprehensive
local
plan.
comprehensive plan.
That's often a 2 or 3 year,
Yeah, is
4
there
year
a
project.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a deadline date for that?
No, and that's something that needs to be talked about with the Board of Selectmen, because it's really their baby.
Well, technically, it's
Technic-
supposed to be done every 10 years.
Well, under the regional policy plan, it's supposed to be done every 5 years.
Okay.
So that being said, our last plan was 2011, although that plan was never adopted by the Cape Cod Commission. It was adopted locally, but not by the commission, so it was not in conformance with the then
It's a little out of date.
regional policy plan. It is out of date. I completely forgot where I was going with that train of thought.
When it was due.
Oh, when it was due. The community that I begged, borrowed, and stole an RFP from is actually doing an update of a master plan off Cape. But it was such a well-written document that I'm using it as my base. They actually did it in 1 year, and I'm going, that's never gonna happen here, no way. It's probably gonna take us 1.5 years just to agree on a vision statement for the town, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it needs conversation, it needs, so,
Think about it. Talk about it.
yeah, yeah, so,
Okay.
Public hearings, different groups.
yeah,
We should
Yeah.
invite in people to
Yep.
appear before us. Who? What kinds of people?
well, no, that's why,
That committee
yeah,
is
it's
gonna-
that committee.
should do it.
Yeah.
And
I see.
should have,
And report to us?
and I would
Well,
think it's all the constituencies too,
Yeah,
right? It's
as
the-
part of the planning process for the for the local comprehensive plan, it does need to be adopted by the selectmen, by the planning board, by town meeting. So the planning board, I'm kind of thinking maybe there should be 2 reps from planning board, but I put 1, but there certainly can be 2.
Sure.
I think, that's not a bad thing. But this is gonna be it's gonna be a multi-year process. But we're ahead of the
And it starts
game.
with the Board of Selectmen
It starts
appointing?
with they are required under the RPP, Region Policy Plan, to appoint a local planning committee, an LPC, to do the LCP.
I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Question?
Go ahead.
Charlene?
Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory? What did we approve the stipend for? The $2,000? Did you say?
200,000 we got.
200,000.
Yep.
Same thing.
What,
And that's from free cash, so it doesn't just go away, so.
but what was,
Yeah.
when we approved it, I.
It was for a consultant to assist in the preparation of the plan. But
Okay.
what, we're ahead of the game because we already have our comprehensive waste management plan. We already have our housing and needs assessment and production plan. We have an open space and recreation plan, and we
We need
have,
a historic plan.
we have some other plans that can fit right into there. It used to be that you had to basically start from scratch and rewrite and fit it into your plan, and it was like, towns were hesitant to even go the next step, because it's like, we already have these well-thought-out plans. Do we really have to do them again? So they've incorporated those into them. One of the big components of the local comprehensive plan is a capital plan, not like what
Not capital outlay.
not like what capital out, but a true capital plan for every department, board and committee that has anything to do with infrastructure or programs or whatever, to really go and look out however many years. And that's, I need to find out how many years we need to go out to say what needs to be done. Again, I think we're ahead of the game because we have a relatively new police and fire station. We don't need a new one in any, in the next 20 years. We have a new station too. We have a community center that's in good, our,
You need a new elementary school.
and that's a regional thing, so we do have some regional things to look at. So, it's a true plan. Do we need a new highway anywhere in town? Well, no, because there's nowhere to put one. Do we need upgrades to existing road systems we have in town? Yeah, we do. Route 28 needs some help. We need sidewalks.
Yeah, but that's the state.
But it's still part of the plan. It is still part of the plan. So those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at, or somebody else will, because I think by the time we get this going, I probably won't be here, but that's okay.
So we should request the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I've requested them. As the
already
town
done that.
planner, I've sent them a memo. So I'll figure out when they want to put it on their agenda. They may ask me to do a charge for the entity. Here's your document, this is what you need to do. I'm hoping they won't require something like that. And what I would like is for, similar to CPC, is to have each board or committee put forward the person they want to serve on the local planning committee.
How's CPC made up?
It has 2 selectmen's reps. It has rec and youth rep, housing committee, housing authority, planning.
Conservation, real estate and open
estate
space.
No historic? Oh.
And are you the
Historic.
chair?
No, David Nixon from rec is the chair. And like I said, we've got, coming right down the list, we've got those boards, planning, there's no zoning board of appeals on it, there's planning, conservation, real estate and open space, rec and youth, historic, the 2 selectmen's appointments.
Charlene, I'll be right with you.
Yep.
I have just a question. I've been appointed to capital outlay by the Board of Selectmen. Now, prior, I served on capital outlay as a representative of the planning board.
You are,
You still are.
you still are.
That isn't what my
They-
appointment says.
Because you're confirmed, I'll check it, Joe, because what typically happens is we appoint you and then the board appoints you and then the selectmen confirm that you're the planning board rep.
That isn't what it says.
Okay,
That was a direct appointment. Because I was surprised, because previously, I had been the planning board rep. But my most recent appointment,
I'll ask
that's
the
out
town-
in the card.
I'll ask the town clerk to check it tomorrow.
Would you? Sure.
Yep.
You had a question?
Just, I guess I'd ask for your opinion in your conversations with other planning departments around on the Cape. You have any idea, this is really an open-ended question, how climate change is going to fit into our LCP and what did you just mention, the capital plan, which is even more infrastructure related?
Well, another plan that I'm tasked with working on is the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Plan. And what that includes is climate change, looking at where our infrastructure is, what is going to be, if, we get that
What's going to be underwater?
mother of all storms, what's going to be underwater, do we need to move facilities, that kind of thing. What do we need to do there? So we are going to have that Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Plan done by the end of May.
Is that a town?
That's a town thing. I got a $20,000 grant to do that. The Cape Cod Commission is doing that for us. It's basically town staff, but then there will be stakeholders invited to that. So that will take into account that.
So that would
And,
be like-
and the local comprehensive plan will work off of these documents that we already have that are approved. We already have a multi-hazard mitigation plan done, and that's through MEMA and FEMA. And that plan will be incorporated. So we're ahead of the game on a lot of things, but there's some things that we really need to look at. Zoning, economic development, historic, guidelines, that kind of thing.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
I have a
Thank you, Mary.
question before you do all this, for Charlene. The plan we approved a month or so ago, for the boat storage down on 28,
Yes,
that was 2 separate lots, correct?
yes.
He's now starting to store boats there. He's got one boat about 6 feet away. from
He's
that
coming
house.
back to the board at your next meeting, so you can talk about that then. He's coming back.
Because we want to give him permission to have storage on that one lot, not separate.
Yep, he's coming back.
On the grass.
Saw that, yeah.